Welcome to Cruise Convos. I'm so excited that you could be here with us today. What is Cruise Convos? Cruise Convos is a series of conversations, but very important, it's casual conversations with cruise industry leaders across the globe. As the founder of LEMONEIGHT, I want to welcome you to this experience. I hope you enjoy and have a little bit of fun. Today, we're going to be talking about empowerment and how we can empower our female leaders in the cruise industry. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, you're the zest. All right, great. I am so excited to have you here. And we have four amazing ladies, and it's such an honor. Carmen, do you want to introduce yourself? And we'll start with you. And why don't you share your favorite story, childhood memory of travel?
Sure. So my name is Carmen Morosan. I'm the Global Shore Excursion Manager for Intercruises Shoreside and Port Services. I'm based in Barcelona. Been here in this role for about 5 years now. As it goes for the most favorite travel memory for me. I grew up in Romania, and I actually, most of my childhood was in communist Romania, where travel abroad was quite, it didn't exist, it was forbidden. But my dad traveled a little bit, mostly inside of the country, sometimes managed to go outside with his work. And he had this custom of sending me or bringing back postcards from everywhere he went. So my most treasured possession at that time was this tin box with all these postcards in it, where I was inseparable from it. And I also had a play with my sister in which we would pull out these cards from the box, and based on what my dad would tell us and what we knew about, and the rest was all children imagination, we would describe that place that was on the postcard, and the other person will ask a million questions like, what do those people wear, what do they eat, what's the best season to be there, and stuff like that. And this was like kind of our trivia game, but it was all imaginary. When I left Romania at the age of 22, my dad kind of, I think, hinted that I'm not going to come back. So the way that he coped with me leaving for good, it was that we made a deal that everywhere I'll go, I'll send him a postcard. And now 20 years later, I have 118 countries and about a few hundreds of cities that I've been, and my dad has a giant box of postcards. Wow. That he uses as a conversation piece, because it's like his substitute for a coffee table book, And when we are around, me and my sister, we're still playing the game every once in a while, but we're a bit more in the know-how right now, so about what's what.
I love it, Carmen. That is such a great story and great memory. And your dad has those postcards. That's so cool. Chiara, do you want to share with us a little bit about yourself and share with us your favorite story as a child with travel?
Sure. So I'm Chiara Giori. I'm the Global Brand and Event Director for Seatrade Cruise Events, and I am based out of London. So I was thinking about this, and it's an interesting one because it was hard to pinpoint a favorite travel story, because I think when I was a child, a lot of my travel meant going and visiting family. So my mom's Australian and my father's Italian, and I was born in France. And so most of our trips were always, okay, we're going to Australia to see my family, or we're going to Italy to see my family. And so then I tried to think about, what does it mean to me right now? Whenever we'd go to Australia to see my grandparents there and my family there, we'd go to Sydney. That's where they were based. And my grandfather in Australia was a sailor. He used to race Sydney to Hobart all the time. And so we would go in our summers, winters in Sydney, which are lovely. And he would always, always, always take us out on his sailboat. And we'd just, sail in the harbor. And he used to put me in races and all kinds of things. And so when I was thinking back to sort of what connects me to what brings me so much joy now, it is the open water and the sea. And I'm saying this as I'm actually down in France looking at the sea, and the joy that it does and peace that it brings me. And so if I think back to that, it's not necessarily, it was a travel memory, but it was more a memory of, yeah, what my family, the impact they had on me in the long term.
I love it. And also the emotion that the water brings to you, like the peace, the calmness. Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Pleasure.
Sharon, do you want to go next? How are you doing, Sharon? You want to share
Yes,
with
I
us?
can. Yes, I'm on the show with you, and I can go next in terms of favorite childhood memories of travel. I have to say that my favorite memories were actually of coming home to Virgin Gorda, because from the age of 9, I was away at school in one of the neighboring islands and only got to come home at Christmas and summer, as well as Easter. So for me, it was, you know, that memory of being excited to come home, especially at the holidays, the Christmas decorations, the memories of the food, the memories of being able to see my brothers and sisters who I hadn't seen, you know, seen for months. So that for me was, you know, is one of the travel memories that really sticks in my mind, because it was based on 2 experiences really, because to get to my island, it wasn't a direct flight, so I had to take a seaplane from St. Croix to St. Thomas, and then a ferry. So I learned to appreciate, you know, traveling at a young age, and all that comes with it that's different and exciting. So that, I would say, that's one of my favorite travel memories. Another that comes to mind really was my first trip to Paris. You know, you as a child growing up in the Caribbean, you read the stories, you read the romantic novels and everything, and it was just refreshing to see my first time going to Paris, that it was all that the storybooks said it would be, including being able to sit at the cafe and sip a cappuccino and have French pastries. So I would say those are some of my favorite travel memories.
I love it, Sharon. Thank you so much. Sharon, tell us a little bit of what you're doing in your role so everybody knows.
Yes, in my role, I like to call myself a tourism experience curator. Because I've been in the tourism business for as long as I know myself. My parents owned a small hotel on Virgin Gorda. So in my current role, what I try to do is to create unique experiences from a travel perspective, for guests to our islands. I don't like to use the word visitors. I like the word guests, because we treat guests, I think, a lot differently than visitors. So I try to match the what the guest wants with the appropriate villa. Do they want a villa on the hillside? Do they want a villa on the beach? Do they have kids traveling with them? Are they adventurous, or do they just want to have you know, yoga in their villa? So I really try to, especially on Virgin Gorda where I'm based, I feel that I know any and everything there is to know about what I call my island, and I want the guests who visit to have the best experience. So it's just matching the guests to the experience and making their dream vacation come true. I would say that's a little of what I do.
I love it. And it's so important, right? Those special, small, little things that you do to make that time
Yeah.
for them extra special. Denella, share with us a little bit about you and your favorite memory.
All right, so I'm Denella Ri'Chard, and I've spent a little over 20 years working in the travel industry. The last 10 years were specifically working on the cruise side of the business, working for a Norwegian cruise line, as well as Carnival Corp with the Holland America brand, working in corporate roles, leading sales, as well as marketing teams. So my recent role at Holland America was Senior Director of Trade Engagement and onboard sales. So leading the future cruise sales team on board. And of course, our industry took a beating this year in 2020. And my role there was impacted. And as a result of it, I did the pivot. And I had an opportunity with 2 television networks to launch a show globally as well as on a major network in South Florida. And that show is called Traveling with Denella Ri'Chard. I'm the executive producer, woo-woo, and host. And it's all about rediscovering the world. So inspiring our audience to get out there and travel again, but to do it smartly and to do it in a COVID-conscious, health, and safe way. So it's educating the audience about what to expect when you travel these days, but also letting them know, while we may have to travel a little bit different, we can still travel and we can still have a great time. So it's my personal mission to use my media platform and my voice to help bring back the travel industry. And as a part of that, I share the mission of empowering women with Claudine. Now, my favorite travel memory is my mom was a member of the National Bowling Association, and she would bowl in tournaments every summer. So every summer we were going somewhere, whether it was Disney or whether it was, you know, Vegas or somewhere, everywhere. Every summer we knew there was a trip. And I always loved when the bowling tournament was in Las Vegas. So my mom would fly us out to Vegas, and one of my aunts, because my mom was the oldest, she had 6 younger sisters. So one of the sisters was our babysitter while she bowled. And we'd get to run around with my aunts in Vegas, and we usually stayed at Circus Circus, which if you know Circus Circus in Vegas, that's where the kids go. You play the games and you win all these stuffed animals. And we would come back with stuffed animals bigger than me that we would take on the plane. So we would have these stuffed animals, mom would have trophies from bowling, and we were true winners when we left Vegas. So believe it or not, as a kid, Vegas was my favorite destination. So that's my favorite travel memory.
I love it. I love it. Who knew, right? Bowling. Love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here. Now, we're going to be talking about empowerment and females in our industry, the cruise industry. Now, can you share a story of where you had a moment where you said, you know what, I feel empowered? I empowered someone, something like along those lines. We'll start with Chiara.
Sure. I think for me, it was before I started working on Sea Trade, but it was while I was working for my current company, so big event business. I started out in operations. And the usual trajectory for anyone who starts in ops is to continue in operations. The way events are usually divided up is you have sales, you have marketing, you have operations, and you have content. People who end up in a role like I'm in now, which is a more strategic one where you oversee the entire event and the strategic direction of it, they tend to come from either sales or marketing. Sometimes you come from a content background, but never do they come from operations. And I had just moved to LA to run the operations team there, running events in medical device and design manufacturing. I mean, as far as you could get from cruise. And my boss at the time, a woman, turned to me about a month after I'd arrived and looked at me, and she was heading up the division. And she turned to me and she's like, you could be me one day. And I remember thinking, no, I mean, that's not the normal path. What do you mean? And she's like, no, I can see it. You can do it. You would just have the right team with you. And in a few years' time, I think that you could take my place. And I think that was, for me, probably one of the biggest moments that stuck with me since, is just having a woman make me realize that I had greater potential than I even gave myself credit for. And I remember that was a very powerful moment. And if it wasn't for her, yeah, I don't know that I'd be where I'm at now. So yeah,
Love it. Thank you, Chiara.
pleasure.
Sharon, would you like to go next?
Yes, I guess for me, this is I wouldn't say it's a tough one, but there's been some very interesting, moments thinking about empowerment over, especially the last couple of months, knowing the struggles that everyone and even, women face. I guess for me, the one that touched me the most was getting a note from a young lady who said, when we worked together before, she said, I was convinced that you didn't like me because you kept saying, you can do more, you can do more, try this. She said, you kept giving me more responsibility. And I kept saying initially, well, I'm not being paid for this. And her note essentially ended by saying, I didn't realize that, that I had it in me. I didn't realize what you were trying to do. You were trying to push me. And here it is now that I'm no longer a switchboard operator. I am now a senior butler at one of the top hotels in the BVI. And I felt really touched that, that she remembered and she reached out and she said, it'll help me to help other people see their potential. For me, that was one of my more powerful, memories of empowering.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That's beautiful. Definitely, we can all touch someone else and help them grow.
Yeah.
Denella, do you want to go next?
Sure. The moment that comes to mind for me is one of my marketing coordinators when I worked for Holland America Line. We were working out of the corporate office in Seattle, and she really wanted to move to Phoenix. She was really my rock, and I valued having her tremendously on my team. So when she came to me and said she had a desire to move to Phoenix, it meant she'd be leaving me, right? And I could have taken a selfish position on that, but instead I said, if you want to move to Phoenix, then I'm going to help you do that. But I have to know, are you serious? Because your whole life has been back here in Seattle, except for a period she had gone to college in Phoenix. I said, but if you're ready to leave Seattle, I'm going to help you get that elevated next level position. So she said she was ready. And I made a call to one of the top leading travel agencies or travel companies in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a company many of us know. And I made a call to the CEO, who I happen to know very well, got her an interview for a marketing manager position, and she ended up getting the job. And so she was so grateful. She was so thankful because most of her career she had been in a coordinator position for 10 years. And no one had bothered to elevate her. Actually, I should say she was an admin. Then she came to me as a coordinator. So she she hadn't had really a lot of movement in 10 years, quite frankly. So when I had the opportunity to open that door for her and empower her to get that next level promotion, I did. So that's one of the memories that stands out for me. And I've been so proud to watch her career.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Carmen, how about you?
Yeah, I was just in awe of the last story in here. I was like, wow, that's so generous and so cool. Yeah, for me was a story that somewhere around the last crisis in 2009, I decided to leave the cruise industry and dedicate myself to my alternative career, which is working photography as a photographer technician and photographer. So, but about 2012, I started missing the industry. I missed to be around travel and cruising and so on. So I wanted to come back in the industry, but man, that was difficult because you go out of it and people just don't understand, first of all, why you have two careers, why you want to switch back and forth from them, and so on. And obviously, I started applying to select number of companies, but I was applying everywhere on the planet because I did not care where I wanted to go. Lucky me, my CV landed out on this desk of an amazing lady called Laura Vlad, and she was at that time the Intercruises Asia director in Singapore. And it was funny because me and Laura, we check each other out on LinkedIn, and we saw that we had like dozens of friends in common. We are both from Romania originally. We work on the same ships many times, but we have never ever met, although we both spent so many years at sea. So I don't know how, but she decided to give me an interview later. I think it was because in her mind was if I went to half of a journey that she did, probably, you know, I might worth an interview. So we had our first interview, and that was great. And then she sent me to, I was living in the north of Spain that time. She sent me to Barcelona to interview with Olga Piqueras, which was the managing director of Intercruises at that time, and another amazing, nurturing female leader. So in between the interview, those two ladies, I landed the job in Singapore, you know, and I become a product manager for Intercruises for Asia. It was very strange, my dynamic with Laura, because when I arrived in Singapore, she immediately became this mentor, but also a very demanding manager, you know, and we often disagree. You know, we're both very much alpha females, and I think we disagree a lot. But it was a weird disagreement because through her feedback, she always made me wanted to strive to do better, to prove myself, to raise the bar on my own performance. And a few years later, when she left Singapore and she knew how much I wanted to come to Barcelona, she actually lobbied on my behalf with the management of Intercruises at that time, and opened the door for me to apply for my current global role. And yeah, I often heard about people telling me how she speaks highly about me and so on. And I never knew that from her own mouth, but I hear so many people giving me this insight. And again, a few more years later, she moved away from Intercruises, and now she's working for a leading cruise line. And the moment that we were no longer in the same company, we become some of the closest friends. Although she lives in Miami, I live in Barcelona, we visit all the time. She continues to be a mentor, and she is still a very close friend now, and here for me every single time. And I think the way she interacted with me from day one and all these opportunities she created for me, it was an amazing lesson of empowering another woman without even me knowing it at times.
Yes. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you all for sharing. Those are great stories. I want to ask you, are you currently involved, or do you know of things that are happening right now to help females feel empowered or to empower women? Are you currently working with any organizations? I know Sharon and I have talked a lot at Sea Trade. We would gather and just talk about women and empowering women. Sharon, why don't you share a little bit about what you're involved in?
As I always say, I keep busy. My mind is always turning. You know, my father says my mind is like a rolling stone that doesn't gather moss. So I tend to try to get involved in a lot of entrepreneurial pursuits for women. For example, this weekend I have something called Christmas Brunch and Shop. And what I have are, I think it's about 16 young female entrepreneurs, all under the age of 30, who have small businesses, but they don't necessarily have a storefront. So, you know, I've helped to create a forum for them to, you know, to sell their products and to engage with the, you know, hotels and restaurants and other persons on island. I also have a blog. I haven't done much with it lately, but it's on Facebook, and it's called Slippers and Stilettos. And the idea is for women is that it doesn't matter whether you're wearing slippers or stilettos, that we should use them as stepping stones. So I try to offer a lot of positive and empowering feedback to ladies. In fact, today as well, and that's why I was a little late getting on. I have a young lady who called and said, you know, I like what you do in the tourism space. I'm a hospitality student, you know, and because of COVID, I'm home now. Was going to school in Paris. And she says, you know, can I come and spend a week with you? So she's spending a week with me, seeing, you know, what the pieces of the hospitality industry are, from creating experiences to checking villas for arrivals, checking the housekeepers, making sure that we follow protocols. So for me, it's all about the little that I know that I can share with especially with younger women who have an entrepreneurial spirit, so that they don't get dejected, because there are a lot of stumbling blocks out there. But I feel that my role is to say to them, you got to keep it moving. And I'm here. I always tell women on the island here, I said, just pick up the phone and call me, even if it's just to take deep breaths. You don't even have to say anything, just to know that, you know, that I'm on the other end of the line. And if all it is to just take deep breaths, you take deep breaths and then hang up. But at least I know that that I've been able to help.
Oh, beautiful. Love it. You're always surprising me, Sharon, with new stuff. I'm like, what? You're doing what now? It's amazing.
Island, and I tell people that, you know, we don't have malls or movie theaters or anything like that. So, you know, the free time, it gives you time to think. At least it gives me time to think about what can I do to help others. Because as some of the other ladies said, there was always someone there every step of the way to help us up the ladder, whether we either realized it or not, or appreciated it or not. So for me, that's what I'd like to leave behind, that I helped, you know, who I could always.
I love that. Thank you so much. Denella, you want to jump in?
Excuse me. Absolutely. So lately, I've really been utilizing my platform with the television show to give power leadership an opportunity to come on and tell us about what they're doing with their destinations. For example, I recently featured New Orleans on the television show. And I had Essence Harris, who is the new president of Soul of New Orleans, which is their multicultural tourism division. And as you guys know, New Orleans had a rough time with COVID in the beginning. So it's very important to get the message out that, you know, New Orleans is open. And New Orleans is so much more than just the popular tourist sites. So the segment was all about getting off into multicultural New Orleans and experiencing, you know, restaurants like Dookie Chase, visiting the Jazz Museum, visiting the Latin side of New Orleans, as well as the Black side of New Orleans, but bringing that whole multicultural vibe. And Essence Harris Banks, again, who's the president, was a part of that segment, and really the voice who told the story of how they are inviting tourists back into the city, but getting beyond just the French quarters and the typical tourist destinations, and helping people discover a new side of New Orleans. So I'm doing that with every segment, especially where I have a female in power, having them as a featured guest on the show to tell their story as we rebuild tourism. And in addition to that, in my local community, I'm a guest speaker with organizations like Women of Tomorrow. I've been invited to speak with them. Jack and Jill organization, Speak to the Girls. So anytime I can speak to young girls and share my story with them, I'm always excited and eager to do so.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chiara?
Yeah, so we actually have been running Professional Women in Cruise at Sea Trade Cruise events for the past 10 years. So that's been a wonderful group. And I mean, it is an event within an event that's been happening over time. But I think what I'm most proud of when it comes to that is when I started working on it, we realized that it was lacking any form of direction or strategy or just general framework. And so we connected with WISTA, which is the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association. And we've been working with them and partnering with them ever since. And so they've really helped us shape not only the content that we're providing, but the entire program. And I do think that it is a much stronger program now than it was when I first started working on the event 6 years ago. But I also see so much more potential with it. And I'm excited to see now that I know that this year has come with many challenges, but I also feel like we've now entered a new digital age where I think engagement on digital platforms is a lot higher. And I think that there are ways that we can continue to engage that community all year round rather than just for 2 hours once a year, which is just such a shame. So that is something that I know I want to try and focus on next year and seeing what we can do as we move forward.
Love it. Thank you, Chiara. Carmen?
Yeah, it's yes. I was also involved with the Vista. I participate actually in those women in the cruising industry events in the last 3 or 4 years, I believe. Again, invited by Olga, by another amazing manager that I have in here now in Barcelona. And I think their mission is very cool. I remain as a member with them. And in the past years, I actually been involved with different NGOs in the past, supporting like, for example, widow or single women in the African continent, you know, different kind of projects. But to me, I believe that the matter of the women empowering is not necessarily a project. It kind of has to be a state of mind, and this is how I look at it, especially between us as women. It needs to be a way of thinking and acting in our everyday life. And of course, we can support the NGOs, we can get involved in all this. It's great, and we have to do it, and we should do it. But to me, the most meaningful way to support women is to tell your sister, your mother, your best friends that what you love about them and how you appreciate them, to recognize their strengths and be there for them when they need it. And they open new businesses. You don't even need to become their client if you don't need to, but you can encourage them, promote their business in your circles, because we are all having our own circle of people. And you know, just help out the way you can. And you were saying when we talked last time, but I also took a note of this. In, you know, it's we think alike. But women often don't apply for jobs because they don't think they meet 10 out of 10 criteria to apply for it, when men apply when they have 6 out of 10. And I think we need to encourage these women. If you have a dream job and you think you don't feel meet of the criteria, apply anyway. Someone will believe in you and give you the opportunity. And I'm telling you this because I lived through this. And we can do simple things like pick up a coffee with that new mom in your office who's struggling to balance a new job and still being a mom. So this is kind of how I look at the woman, the empowering.
I love it, Carmen. You made great points. You know, women, like you said, will not apply for a job if they don't meet 100% of everything. Men, 60%, and they're like, yeah, I'll go for it, right? How can we work closer with the male figures, specifically in the cruise industry? How can we work closer with them? Because there is a lot of men in the industry, right? So it's hard sometimes to get a seat at the table. What can we do different? Denella?
I think one of the things we can do different is ask these the men in the senior leadership positions to mentor more women and to take them on, to make a personal investment in their personal development and career growth. That's one of the things that can be done, because what I find is that our industry is very incestuous and we tend to repeat, do what we've always been doing in the past, you know, promote your friends, you know, just do the same. And so I think for change to come about, women, we have to, you know, ask them to make a commitment to change. I don't want to use the word demand, but it's pretty much a demand, and put down a proclamation and say CEOs take on women as mentors. So I'm going to say, here I am, a woman who's worked on the corporate side of the cruise as well as hospitality industry for, you know, Hilton Worldwide, as well as Carnival Corporation and Norwegian. So Mr. CEO, if you're out there, cruise line, take me on, mentor me, you know, and other women, you know, but it's not going to happen unless they start to make a personal commitment. Now, we do see that there are some companies that are doing a great job. Like you have to commend celebrity. You see it with Lisa Ludoff, you see it with Dondra, you see it with Vicky. They're doing an amazing job over there. But there's still a lot of room for others in the cruise industry and throughout the travel industry to elevate women. So, call to action to our men in leadership, CEOs: mentor, commit to mentoring, elevating a female talent, and help her get to that higher level of leadership. We got enough in the lower, the middle management. No, we're talking about vice president, senior vice president, president, and co-CEO, if not CEO. Those are the jobs, not to be confused.
Drop the mic. Whoa.
Boom.
Boom. I love it. Anybody else would like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree with I think we have a lot of amazing women in the middle management ranks, but I think it's just the time to open the doors and mentor these women to actually take the reins and become the CEOs and presidents. I think it's a matter also of times and time cycles. Some of the presidents in function now, they've been in their seats for a long time. But slowly we see movement. To be honest with you, when I joined the ship, I used to say this before, in 2001, if we have a female joining the ship and she was working in the engine room or in the navigation deck, we were like, she's a superstar. Oh my God, take her autograph if you can, But now you go and you see there is entire, navigation deck full of women, like celebrity, have a lot of captains, women. So things are changing, maybe not changing as fast as we want them to see. Maybe they will not going to change in my professional lifetime significantly, but I think our job is to look beyond our life cycle. For us is the next generation, and I'll be happy if my niece will have I don't have children, but if my niece will have the opportunity, then I'm happy with that too. So yeah, change is needed and it's coming. I also believe that we have as women, we have some skills that they're very much needed, and we saw those coming now with this pandemic. The empathy, the resilience, the emotional intelligence, the creativity, all those will be in high demand as we rebuild, as the cruising industry restarts. And we need to identify in the middle ranks those women that they have the potential to be future leaders and contribute with these kind of skills.
Beautiful. Awesome. Now, if you could share some advice to a future, a female, what would your advice be to them? Chiara?
Don't try and be a man. Like, be you. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned, is that trying to impersonate anybody else or trying to do what you think is the right way of doing the way a man would approach something is not what brings strength in female leaders. I think similar to what Carmen just said, this has proven, the strengths that come with having women leaders. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me, is stick to who you are, and don't be afraid to show that empathy and to be a woman. So
Great. Sharon?
I guess I would have to echo you know, what's being said. I think it's so important that we remember we are you know, as individuals, and I guess I would say we just need to be ourselves. We need to not negate our femininity, but at the same time, you know, as Carmen said, we don't want to be seen as she acts like a man. I think it's important that we maintain our humanity as well. And, you know, it's okay to cry. It is okay to show, you know, empathy to, you know, to others, but it's also important to be a good leader, not necessarily only just to be, you know, to be a boss, but to be a leader and someone who encourages others to, you know, to strive. And we must not forget that, you know, there is that old boys network out there. And I think there's also what I call the young boys network. And it's important, I feel, for women, we need to have our own network where we use that network to help other women to get that seat at the table. I tend to be a bit assertive, is the word I like to use, in that it's not a matter sometimes of asking for that seat at the table. It's finding a way strategically to get that seat at the table, and find a way to sit down and make your voice as well as the voice of other women, you know, be heard.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. Denella, and then Carmen.
Okay. My advice is support each other, you know, support the next woman. I've seen a lot of times where women become intimidated of other women, and it's just that this woman may have a different set of strengths than you. Recognize it, acknowledge, honor it, and figure out how together those strengths combined can become a powerful duo and team, and elevate each other. If one gets up, reach back down and pull the other one forward, because we're all having this conversation already. We know the cruise industry is a male-dominated industry, and we're only going to get ahead if we help each other and not be intimidated and only want to be the one with that position of honor. Help the others. So always give back, because it was somebody, I'm sure, who helped you. So give back, but in particular, give back, elevate, honor other women, so that we can have more women who are seated at the leadership tables.
Oh, wow. Wow. Can't even talk. That's amazing. Carmen, go ahead.
Well, I wish I could say to her or to another female leader to not be afraid to ask for help or support from other women in the organization. I believe the higher you climb the ladder, the more difficult it is to ask for help, because you fear that you're gonna look weak. But I think no one should be afraid to ask for help and guidance, especially between us women. And we all know the obstacles. We often been in the same ones for all of us. And asking for help, for me, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you trust the person you ask. You trust in their abilities, in their skills, and is allowing you to be vulnerable in the right way, to be approachable, and gives the other person the opportunity to contribute, to shine, to feel empowered. For me personally, this was one of the hardest lessons I have ever had to learn as a woman in business, because we are in this environment where we're walking on eggshells. We are always afraid to fail. We are always afraid to, you know, to disappoint, and it's hard to ask for help in that situation. But I think it's so important to show that, you know, nobody's perfect. You can get there. It's just you have to rely on other people, and you know, you become better together.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for bringing this, for coming on Cruise Convos and talking about all this. So important. And I hope we can, maybe impact someone by this video. Thank you, guys. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Happy
An honor to
holidays.
meet you. Happy holidays.
On behalf of myself, Claudine, founder of LEMONEIGHT, I want to thank you for coming today and for being part of Cruise Convos. Take a look at the following. Have an amazing day and keep shining bright. And remember, you are the zest.